So welcome everyone. So glad to have you all here with us today. My name is Erin and I am the Student Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering. So thanks for joining us about our session today, all about registration for first year. You will have the opportunity to ask questions today. We will be going through some very specific information. So you may want to hold off on some of your questions until a little bit later in the session so that because we may answer them in advance. But you will be able to use the chat to ask any of those questions that you have. And I do want to start off by acknowledging that our UBC Vancouver campus is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. But I'm actually joining today from Edmonton, Alberta, which is located on the Treaty 6 territory, which is a traditional gathering point for many First Nations, including Cree, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, and Anishinaabe, as well as the Inuit and Métis people. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional caretakers of the lands that you may be joining us from today. So I'm in Edmonton for the Canada-wide Science Fair STEM Expo. So if any of you will be attending the Canada-wide Science Fair, do come say hi to me over the next few days. But today we are going to get started with this session all about course registration specifically for year one. So I have a current student here with me today. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves and they'll give their name, program, and maybe one of your favorite courses that you've taken so far.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Drayden Fontana. I'm in electrical engineering. I'm actually also in a dual degree, so I do a lot of arts courses as well. And my favorite program so far that I've taken was in my second year, ELEC, which is a signals and systems course, which basically taught you about, radio waves and processing them and things like that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today. You're also in a new role with the Engineering Undergraduate Society. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your new role and how your portfolio kind of supports students, especially our new first years?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the incoming VP academic, or now the current VP academic. And what we do in that role is, I'll just give a run through of my portfolio. So my portfolio covers tutoring. So a lot of, we've got tutoring for a lot of first year courses and some second year courses. So the tutoring reps will come through and you can, study for exams, things like that. We've got a first year club room crawl. So first years can come through all the different club rooms of the different departments. You can see what electrical is like. You can see what mechanical is like, et cetera. We've got the iron pin. So there's a ceremony where, it's specific to UBC where we set you up with an iron pin where you kind of, do your ethical oath as a UBC engineering student. And we have this whole ceremony where we give you the pin, all that. So that's under my portfolio. We have professional development, which might not be relevant to you in first year as you're kind of getting your footing, but later on, it'll definitely help you out. And then lastly is advocacy. So that's me kind of talking to the faculty, and kind of working things out on your behalf. So yeah, that's my portfolio.
Awesome. Thanks so much. A lot of really amazing resources for our first year students. So very cool to see everything that the EUS always does every year. And there's other portfolios that are part of the EUS as well. So you'll be able to join in lots of activities. Like when you get to campus, there's week ENOT, and then there's E-Week that happens in January, which is lots of fun kind of competition and games and events. There's a first year retreat that the EUS typically does for first year students. So there's lots of really awesome activities coming up and lots to support your academics as well. So thanks for sharing all of that now. So again, I am going to start to share my screen. It's not really a formal presentation, but I will show you some screenshots of kind of using the course registration system. Drayden's going to stick around and we'll jump in a little bit later to answer some more of your questions about the student experience, but I'm going to give everyone kind of a quick rundown on really what course registration is all about. So let me just start by sharing my screen. All right. So first year registration will start June 20th to 22nd this year. But we wanted, and that's, I mean, a ways away, right? So we wanted to give a basics of kind of what you can expect before it even gets to that time. I know that from looking at the Discord, many of you have already been looking at courses and registration and things like that. So many of you may already be pros at this, but I wanted to kind of give a really quick rundown of some of those logistics. We do also have our advisors in engineering academic services that will be providing some specific registration sessions as well. And those will get even more kind of technical into the whole logistics of everything. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of that today so that you can kind of get started and play around. And then in early June is when you can attend those sessions from our advisors. So in engineering, we use what are called standard timetables, or STTs. You'll hear them referred to as. This will include almost all of the classes that you need in your first year. They are named differently, as you can see here. So there is a full description of them online, and I will also add the description to the recording of this video as well. And it's important to kind of have a look at them to know which one to register in. So most students coming into their first year, a majority of our students are going to be registering in what's called the HSSTT, or the high school student STT. So if you're coming into first year from high school, that is likely going to be the STT that you are choosing. However, we do have a few more specialized STTs, so I wanted to mention those today. The HPSTT is for students who have not taken Physics 12 or equivalent. If this is you, on your offer letter, it would have said that you are missing Physics 12. And if there is any way that you're able to complete that Physics 12 or equivalent by the end of this summer, we do encourage you to do so because it will just help your progression through the school year. If you aren't able to complete that physics before coming to UBC, then you'll take this HPSTT, but do note that you will then be taking your last of your first year physics courses in the summer after first year. So it will kind of spread out your first year a little bit, just to make sure that by the end of the summer of your first year, you are up to speed with everyone else going into their second year program. The HVSTT is for athletes. So if you are a varsity athlete, make sure that you connect with our advisors so that they can help you plan that schedule. The HZSTT is for students who qualify to take honors math. So that's math 120 and 121. This is a very difficult math course, so it is really for students who really, really, really love math and want to really specialize in it. And if you do have questions about if you'll qualify, you should talk to the math department directly to confirm that you qualify. The PMSTT is for students who are accepted into the pre-med alternative pathway. And then there is the PBME STT for students who were selected for the pre-biomedical engineering path. If you are going into the PBME STT, you will get additional course registration information sent to you because it is a little bit different, but I'll mention a little bit of that today. And then finally, there is the ST-STT. So that is like for transfer students. If you are transferring and have done some post-secondary beforehand, you have a good chunk of your first year done already, then you're likely registering in the ST-STT and then filling in the rest of your courses. So I do want to note that if you ended up going to register in all of the STT courses that or STT that you are looking for are full, then there will be a transitory timetable available. What that means is that it'll be called the HS transitory timetable, for example. So if that is your right one, it'll be, instead of an HS STT, it'll be HSAR STT. And it's really just a placeholder. So because all of these students are coming in, we don't necessarily know which STT you'll need specifically. So we try to make as many STTs as possible in advance. And then if there are not enough of a certain type of STT, you'll just go ahead and register in the transitory STT, and then our advisors will know that we need to make more STTs of that particular type. They'll do that, and then they'll help you register a little bit later in the summer. So you will still get all of your required first year courses. It just means that you may be waiting a little bit longer on your actual schedule. Once you do select your STT, you will also need to add your first year English and a humanities course. Now, Words 150B is the recommended first year English course to add. You can see a list of those topics on their website. I just looked today and they have updated those topics now. So if you did want to search the Words 150B topics, you can see those now. I will add a link for that as well in a second. For your humanities course, you can take almost any course offered by the Faculty of Arts. And the Engineering Academic Services website does have a search tool that you can make sure the course has been approved already. So I would encourage you to look at that. The email that you would have gotten a couple of weeks ago would have a link to that, and I'll also add a link in just a minute. So I would encourage you to try and add these courses so that your schedule is as balanced as possible between term 1 and term 2. So it's looking at the STT that you'll be taking and then how many courses are in each term, deciding where that English and that humanities should go for you. Typically, it's going to be a humanities in one term and the English in the other term, but it's up to you depending on what that schedule looks like. Now, as I mentioned, students in the PBME STT will have a few slightly different instructions to follow. You'll actually register in your STT, which will not have your Chem 121 and 123 in it. But then in late June or early July, the chemistry department will automatically register you in your Chem courses. And then PBME STT students will only add their first year English, which again is Words 150B. You won't add a humanities in year 1. However, some students do choose to take Words 150B in the summer after first year, but it can be competitive to get into that Words 150B class in the summer term. So do keep that in mind. All right. So when you are going into the SSC, you can log into the SSC. It's the same place that you would have logged into to view your admit letter and accept your offer. This time you can select course schedule. And it is important to make sure that you are registering or looking at courses at least for 2023 winter. If you end up in the summer session, you won't see any of these STTs that we're talking about today. So just make sure, sometimes it does default to the summer session. So make sure it shows up as 2023 winter for you. On the left-hand side then, you can click on Browse and then click Standard Timetables. And then through there is how you will select your STT. So you'll be in the Bachelor of Applied Science. Then you're going to select timetables for year 1. From here is where you can kind of start to create a work list. You may hear the term work list a lot. A work list is just a way for you to kind of organize your classes, put them together. It does not save a space for you at all, but it does allow you to go in and register for all of your classes all at once that are in a work list when your registration time comes. So once you select that first year standard timetable list, you will see, and you can scroll down, that there is a whole bunch of different STTs listed. You can see all of those now. When you hover over one of those STTs with your mouse, you should see this pop out that kind of shows up on the right-hand side of your screen. That shows you sort of when those courses are going to be, what that schedule sort of looks like. So you can kind of compare them easily by hovering over in that way. But obviously, if you want to look a little bit closer about what when certain courses are and everything like that, then you will want to actually click on the STT to see them. All right, when you do want to see more, you can click again, that STT. So if I had clicked that STT, I would come up to a screen like this. There would be a description at the top. I just scroll down a little bit to open a section comments to show you. On this screen, you'll see a few different things. You'll see the lecture on your left. You'll see that it's part of an STT. You'll see that there's multiple components to many of your classes. So you will have larger lectures, but then you'll also have a smaller lab or tutorial component typically as part of that course. You'll see the time that the class runs. You'll see section comments that are going to give you any specifics about that course, and you'll see how that course is being offered. So you may see something offered as hybrid, for example, or in person. Some of your humanities course may have the option still of online. There's very few online courses anymore, but if you see that, you'll know that that course is not going, you'll know how that course is going to be offered. This section comments for courses in your STT are probably not going to matter too much for you, but for humanities courses or Words 150B, it would be a really great idea to look at those section comments to see if there's any details in there. If you were to then click on that course that is hyperlinked there as well, it'll bring you to a page that shows you even more information. So lots of ways to find out even more info about that course. If you were to continue scrolling down on that page, then you will see your STT in a way that shows you kind of the timing of everything, what courses they are, and more like what a typical timetable looks like. Even though it looks like your classes are back to back here, you do actually have 10 minutes to walk between each class. Your class is going to end 10 minutes before it says on the schedule. So for AppSci 100 on Mondays from 9 to 10, it's actually going to end at 9:50. And then you would have 10 minutes to walk to that next class. So you can see what that looks like here. Now, a reminder that this will be your STT courses, and you will still need to add either your Words 150 or your Humanities to this term, and then one of them to the other term likely. So those are the two courses you would need to add in addition to this STT that exists already. Typically, courses that fall on Monday, Wednesday, Friday are going to be an hour. You're going to have a total of 3 hours or so of lecture each week. And then courses that fall on Tuesday, Thursday are going to be about an hour and a half or just under an hour and a half. So that, again, you're still having close to that 3 hours of lecture each week. So that's kind of how our courses are set up. If you have a tutorial or a lab, those are usually a one-time a week thing. And so then you will see it only show up in your schedule once. All right, so that's a quick overview. Some of you may have seen that. And then just a reminder that registering for your STT will register you for both terms, not just for one term or the other. So it would be for first term and second term, taking you all the way from September all the way through to the end of April. All right, just a few more points to add, and then we'll bring Drayden back on, and then you can ask some more of your questions. So, there's lots of information on the Engineering Academic Services website. So be sure to check out that. It's being updated as we speak, basically, and there will be more information on there about course registrations. That's always really your first go-to spot. You'll also get an email about 1 week before registration with your specific date and time. It'll be somewhere on June 20th, 21st, or 22nd if you're coming into first year, and it'll give you a specific time at which you can start registering. So we do recommend that you register as soon as your time is available so that you can get those courses you're hoping for, or not the courses, sorry, but the schedule that you're hoping for, because you will get all of your courses, but it is just which schedule will fit you best. And as I mentioned, to start off with, you're just creating a work list, which you can start doing right now. Your work list is a chance for you to play around with those courses. It's like a mock timetable, so you can create several of them. And we actually highly recommend that you have several of them. So if you go to register for one work list and it's full already, that you can go and register for your next one and you have some options. Your work list does not save a space for you in any of your courses. It's just a way for you to save which courses you're interested in, play around with where you want to add that Humanities or that Words 150B. Once it is time for you to register in your courses, you can go into that work list and you can just register from there. And then you'll be able to verify your official timetable by clicking on the timetable, and then it'll show as registered. For those of you who are expecting to receive credit for AP, IB, or British Pattern Curriculum A-level courses, you may already know what credit you should be receiving. However, we do recommend that you wait until you have confirmation from UBC that you have any advanced credit before actually dropping those courses from your schedule. Once you have received credit, you will see it in your SSC, and it usually shows up in late July or early August for AP and IB courses. It may be a little bit later into August for any A-levels. And then you'll have until the drop deadline in the second week of classes to continue to make changes to your schedule without any penalty. So for term 1, that would be all the way until September 18th. And for term 2, it would be January 19th. Now, regardless of which credits you receive, we highly recommend taking first year math and physics, as it will really be the foundation of your degree at UBC. So we want to make sure that you do have a really strong understanding in that area. Credit for English and Humanities can definitely be used and will help to lighten your course load in first year. But again, I would recommend registering in those courses now, and then you can always drop them later. The courses that you do receive credit for will count as having been completed, but it will not have a grade associated with them. All right, so that is all of the kind of main information that I wanted to share with you. So we have a few questions that were submitted in advance, and we have a few questions coming in the chat. So we will jump into answering those. So let me just have a look and see. So Drayden, there is a question about the dual degree with arts and engineering. They're wondering if there's anything that they should keep in mind while building their timetable for first year. So maybe you want to mention, was there anything that you kind of planned on doing in first year before you like officially started in that dual degree?
Yeah, so I didn't realize I was going to do a dual degree until second year.
Okay.
So in my first year, I wasn't actually fully prepared. I just did what the standard engineering timetable recommended. I did my Words 150. I did my humanities credit, all those things. But looking back in hindsight, like if I were to give some advice, I would say if you want to do a dual degree, it depends on the person, and this is just in my experience, but it's nice to kind of mix up your course load. So if you can throw in a couple arts courses and engineering courses, that's always nice.
Awesome. Yeah, and so if you are interested in a dual degree, that's definitely something that you can apply into during your first year. So it's something you can keep an eye out, but your schedule would be generally the same in first year. I'm just going to add a couple of links as we chat as well. So what's the next question? There's a question about what if we notice restricted or blocked on our standard timetable courses. So if it's in your standard timetable, there shouldn't be an issue with it. It is good to see on the course comments section, it may be blocked from other students, but it may not be blocked for you. When you're adding it to your work list, if you are having trouble with that, then you can always contact our Engineering Academic Services office to help with that. Or if you're posting in that first year or the incoming student Discord channel, if you're using the FAQ section, then myself and some of my staff monitors that, and we can always check into that for you. So that we can make sure. Sometimes there are courses that may be blocked currently, but they will be unblocked by the time registration comes around. You may see it more with some humanities if there's restrictions on certain registration combinations in the humanities course, or if it's offered by a certain faculty that opens some restricted seats and things like that. If you're clicking on the course though, you should always be able to see, it'll tell you if seats are blocked for a certain subset of students, like students in a certain faculty, or if there are restricted seats as well. So if you're clicking through that hyperlink of the course itself, that's where you should be able to see what's kind of going on. But again, we are here to help. So you may just need to mention to us which course that is that you're looking at. All right, Drayden, a question that was submitted in advance. And again, because you're doing the dual degree, you'll have a little bit more knowledge of some humanities courses and things like that. But what are some recommendations that maybe you have? What are the favorite humanities courses that you've taken? Or maybe what would you encourage students to look at before they're deciding on their humanities course?
Yeah, sure. So I think the best piece of advice that I can give is that if you're going to take a humanities course, take one that you like. Like, you're going to excel at things that you like. And if you just do something that your friend told you was easy, sometimes it's not going to be easy because sometimes courses change over time and it's not always as easy as they had it. And also, you're not going to want to spend time on things that you don't necessarily like. So if you like math, maybe take an econ course. If you like history, take a history course. I liked history. I took history courses. I took French. If you're fluent in a language or you want to get better at a language, take a language course. Yeah, I guess that would be my piece of advice on arts.
Perfect. A couple more kind of advising questions that I'll touch on quickly that were sent directly to me. So feel free to send your questions to everyone, but if you want to direct message me, you can as well. So the process for submitting your AP or IB courses in order to get credit. So really what should be happening is that you are requesting from either the College Board or the IBO to send UBC your transcripts directly. As long as we are getting those transcripts from College Board or IBO, then we will assess you automatically for that advanced credit. There's also a question of, is the STT mandatory or am I able to take less courses? So if you do need a reduced course load for any reason, we do encourage you to talk to an advisor. So in June, you can start setting up advising sessions with our advisors in engineering academic services, and they'll be able to help guide you if you are looking at taking a reduced course load. Students do need to complete a minimum of 27 credits of our total 37 credit first year courses in order to progress to year 2. There are also some programs that have requirements for completing certain courses before you can continue into that program. So there's a few different considerations. We don't want students to just kind of drop whatever courses you want because it may affect your progression. And that's why we would encourage you to talk to our advisors. There's a question about, is engineering eligible for the dual degree with the Masters of Management program? It is at the Okanagan campus, but not at the Vancouver campus currently. So everything that we are talking about today is specifically for the Vancouver campus. There is information on the Okanagan engineering advising site. So if you are going to the Okanagan campus, then definitely you're welcome to go check out those resources there. But everything that we're mentioning today is specific to Vancouver. On the UBC webpage about AP courses, it's mentioned that UBC uses the grade that you got on your equivalent AP high school course, as well as your score on your respective AP exam. Does this still apply? So this is for admission purposes. This will not affect your course registration, and it does not affect your advanced credit options because that will be strictly based on your AP results. But that is for admission purposes because typically when you are admitted, we don't have your AP exams yet. So I think that's what you're asking about there. Is it possible to take other courses like Japanese in addition to the engineering STT and English courses during first year? So definitely Drayden mentioned there that you took some French. So those humanities courses, and I added that link that has the humanities search tool. So you can search any courses. Basically, it's anything offered by the Faculty of Arts. There is a limit of the number of language courses, so languages other than English, that you can take as part of the credit towards your degree, but you can definitely do one language course towards your humanities and social science elective as well. There's a question about, when will the course professor be assigned? So typically that's not going to be until a lot later. Drayden, maybe you would mention about kind of like what first year was like for you, getting to know some of the profs. What was that? What did that look like for you?
Sorry, do you mean like how did I choose my profs? Like I'm not sure what the question was.
So a lot of your first year courses, you're not really going to be able to choose your profs anyways. But maybe just, you know, coming from high school, having a high school teacher is a little bit different than having a professor in first year. Maybe you can just speak to kind of like what that transition was like to having professors versus like a regular teacher.
Yeah, so you're not going to spend as much time with your professor as you would have with your high school teacher. You know, I think a lot of times your main point of contact will be the TA. So if you really will want to rely on the TA if you can, a lot of times, or I think they're supposed to do office hours, professors are supposed to. So if you really do want to like interact with your professor and like get that time in with them, then really take advantage of the office hours that they post. They mostly, in high school, it's much more personable. So if you don't show up to those office hours, like, you know, I mean, depending on the professor, they may say like, oh, I'll do extra office hours or whatever. But a lot of times you're not going to get those just like professors that are doing office hours whenever you ask. So, I mean, most times you're not going to do whenever you ask. So yeah, I guess that would be my piece of advice on the difference.
Yeah, I would say that many of our professors, though, are like there to help students as well, though. So if you have another course during their office hours, you can always send them an email and reach out to them, and you can potentially set something up with them, or they can respond to you via email. You're also going to have TAs and instructors in your tutorials and in your labs and your studios and things like that. So that's like another sort of like teaching reference where you can connect with when you're actually applying some of those problems that you've learned in lectures and things like that. So just to give you a sense, but you're likely not going to be able to have the flexibility, especially in your STT, to pick and choose professors. And honestly, a lot of the first year courses are all going to be taught by the same professors, or it's going to be a team of professors teaching. So everyone's going to have a lot of the same profs in first year anyways. Next question. So there's a question about what is the benefit of taking the HZ honors math STT. So there's not really any specific benefit. The benefit would be to you if you really love math and you want to dive into an even more intense than normal first year math class. You are welcome to consider that, but there's no other benefit in terms of your second year placement is not going to be looked at differently or anything like that. So it's really just for you. There's a question regarding the PBME STT. So if you eventually decide that biomedical engineering is not for you and you're in the PBME STT, you can definitely still go through the second year placement process to go into any of our other programs. That's not an issue. We do set up the PBME STT for students that are planning to go into biomedical engineering. But if you get to the end of first year and you're like, oh, I think I'd really rather something else, you're welcome to. And I think that's also the benefit of our foundational first year, that you get to really explore all of those different programs to learn more about them and decide which one is going to be best for you. And as Drayden mentioned, there's opportunities like the club room crawl where you can chat with upper year students in all of those departments to learn more about what they're like. There's a question about when I use the search tool to find some of the humanities courses, they simply don't show up. For example, I tried to find, I'm going to guess architecture 405, but couldn't. So if a course is not showing up, it means that it may have never been evaluated before. Now, a reminder that you should be checking to see that it's offered by the Faculty of Arts. I'm going to take a guess and say that if that is an architecture course, that is actually offered by the Faculty of Applied Science, because the School of Architecture, Landscape Architecture is part of our faculty. So that would not count as a humanities course. If it's something else, then you can definitely check it out. We'd also typically recommend sticking with first year courses to take in your humanities, because you're going into first year. First year is going to be very different than a second year course, and just being with other first years is going to be kind of like more on your level. So that is something to consider as well. I would not kind of recommend trying to take really high level courses, with the exception of if you are doing a language course, then if you have done like French immersion or gone to a Francophone school or something like that, you may be starting in a higher level.
Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
I can just hop in there because yeah, I did French immersion. So yeah, that's what I did in my first year as well, is I just took a upper level French course. So yeah, the same applies for if you're high level in any other language course.
Perfect. I'm just trying to read through. I think we've answered most of the questions. There is a question about for adding in the English humanities courses into the STT. So you're not actually adding them into the STT, but you could add them into your work list. So in your SSC is where you can start to create a work list. There's lots of videos about this online as well. I don't have access to show those screenshots from my account because I'm not a student, but I will make sure that the links are added. And then basically it's just adding them to a work list. You're not adding any courses to your STT, you're choosing an STT, and then you're adding your humanities and your English to your work list. And then you can register your work list when your registration date and time comes. A question oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just got a question that I thought was pretty relevant to share with everyone. So I was asked what some studying and time management tips are, and more specifically, how many hours a day I recommend that you study. And I'd say you can go into so each course syllabus should have a recommended studying time. So if you follow those recommended guidelines, and then like I personally use Google Calendar, it works really well. And if you make a schedule and stick to that schedule, or where you say, I'm going to study for these hours, then you will check off like way more assignments than if you just think in your head, oh, I have this assignment due this day. I just need to get that done. Rather, just like actually set an amount of time that you're going to study no matter what.
Perfect. And there's quite a few resources out there as well if you are looking for kind of how to manage your time. We have a really great channel called Engineering Stories if you haven't seen that yet. And there's several videos highlighting how they manage their time using either Google Calendars or other resources as well. So really make sure to kind of find something that will work for you and stick to that so that you can manage your time and to do that. I think maybe, Drayden, if you want to mention kind of in addition to that, but specifically getting involved in like other activities in first year. So I'm not sure what you were involved in first year. I know a lot of our students will get involved in things. How much sort of time are you spending outside of the classroom on other activities, or how did you kind of add in, how many things did you do? How did you manage all of that all together?
Right. So my first year was in 2020, which was the online year. So there weren't really activities. There were, but like we didn't really engage with them very much. So my first year maybe isn't a great example, but I would say for this year, I've kind of been more engaged with like clubs and things, etc. I mean, obviously you can see I'm VP academic. So yeah, I would say I can't really give you an exact number of how much time to spend, but I would say like at least, the best piece of advice I can give is to just actually block that off, like make a calendar and just like block off time. And when you block off time, give yourself time for those extra things, the things that are like, that make you feel more, satisfied with your life and make you feel happy and like give you a sense of community, things like that. And actually block off that time, because if you don't, a lot of times you're just going to study and you're not going to give yourself a break at all. So yeah, that's my piece of advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Typically, as an advisor, I'd recommend not committing to more than like 2 regularly occurring activities in your first year. So like a team and something else. That just saves you some extra time so that you can participate in things like Day of the Longboat that we have, or like Storm the Wall, or any of like those week ENOD activities, or E-Week that comes up in January. So any of those sort of like one-off activities, it gives you some time in there. And helps make sure that you're not too overcommitted in first year, because obviously we want you to do well in your academics. But I think what I hear from all of our students is that the community in UBC Engineering is really amazing. So really getting involved in that community is something that really adds to highlighting your experience as a student. A question, maybe Drayden, you can help answer this one. So what are some of the ways that professors use to communicate with students? And how do you hear from them? How do you know what's going on? Anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, there's a variety of websites that they might use. A couple of the big ones that you'll see probably, you'll see Canvas announcements. So that a lot of times there'll be discussion posts, things like that on Canvas. Canvas is university-wide. So you'll have one for every class, but some profs will actually use the announcements and discussions, whereas others will use outside sources. So the big outside source that I would say a lot of profs use is Piazza. And Piazza is like a question answering forum type of thing, where students can ask questions, teachers can give, or professors can give announcements, and students can answer other students' questions. So yeah, those are the 2 big ones I would say. Yeah.
And yeah, email. So there's nothing that you necessarily need to be worried about before coming into classes. If the prof wants you to look at anything in advance, they will send you an email directly. So just make sure that you are checking your emails. It will totally be in there. So there was a question about how to contact the undergrad math chair for signing up for the HZ STT. So if you do have questions about that, if you go into the HZ STT and look at the Math 120 course, it will have their contact information in there. If you search UBC undergrad math chair, I think that the website with that link will come up as well. So it's just like a generic email address. I can see if I can find that. I don't know if I have that written down here, but give me a second. I can see if I can find that. A few more questions about, are you eligible for the HZ STT? So again, that would be best to direct directly to the undergrad math chair. So let me pull up that link. If courses in your STT have no status, that should be fine as well. It just means that the course is available for students. How many work lists do you recommend making? Drayden, maybe do you want to suggest how many work lists you would plan to make typically? There's not really one number that I would say, but.
Yeah, I made one work list. I just made a work list and then it worked. So I stuck to it. And then I was just kind of adaptable. I was ready on the day. So if I couldn't get into any other or the courses that were in my work list, I just had those tabs open so I could just go to the other like math course, for example, and just register for the other section that I needed. And if I didn't get into that section, then I followed up with an email to a professor. Or if I needed to get into the section that I specifically had, then I followed up.
Okay, I would suggest making more than one, but probably like somewhere around 5 to 10, I would say. I would say 10 is kind of probably on the excessive side. It'll also depend on when your registration date is. So if you have an earlier registration time, chances are you can probably get into one of your first choices. If you have a later registration time, it may come up a little bit later as well. A few questions about kind of first year credit and things like that. So let me just add in the link for everyone. And again, do make sure that you are checking your emails because these links were sent out not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So make sure that you're checking those emails so that you have all of this information. But let me go ahead and add in the first year credit website where you can see if you have, if you will be getting credit for those courses. I'm just trying to see a question about kind of the length of time to complete your degree. So the engineering degree on its own is going to take you 4 years, if not longer, if you decide to spread out any of your courses. If you're adding in a minor or doing the dual degree or adding in anything like co-op, it is going to extend your degree to be longer than 4 years. So typically it's going to extend it by at least a semester, if not a year. So if you are planning to do a minor or the dual degree or co-op program, or really just add in anything extra, it's probably going to extend your degree. The good news is that with any of these kind of additional pieces, you don't have to decide just now. You can get started in your first year. Some of them, you like the dual degree in arts, you can apply into in first year. Your minor, you're not actually going to apply into until closer to your 3rd year. If you're doing co-op, you wouldn't apply into co-op until the start of your 2nd year at the earliest. So a lot of these kind of additional things, you have a lot of time to decide, is it really something that's right for you? Will that extension of your degree make it worth it for you? And for a lot of students, it may be yes. For you in particular, it may be no. So it really gives you some time for you to make that decision of what will be best for you.
Yeah, also, I'd just like to hop in here on the topic of longer or degrees in general. That is kind of a big sticking point in our advocacy efforts because a lot of engineers don't do it in 4 years. And it's just important for students such as yourself to kind of understand that there isn't, to destigmatize the longer degrees, because chances are, there's 120 participants in this call. Some of you are going to fail courses, and that happens. And we all fail courses, right? Or maybe not necessarily. Maybe you didn't fail any courses in your degree, and congratulations. But, it happens. And if you do, sometimes it can extend your degree. but like the important thing is to stick with it. Like when you get to the end and you're an engineer, we all kind of have this common bond. And like when I meet someone that's graduated from engineering, I'm like, wow, like I have some kind of respect for that person because they stuck with it. And so it's important that you understand that it can be difficult at times, but to keep going. And if your degree ends up taking longer, that's not a big deal. And a lot of people do that as well. The average Canadian engineer takes 5.3 years to graduate. So that's kind of important stat.
Yeah, thanks for those. I mean, we do have students that graduate in 4 years, and we do have students that graduate in many more years than that. So it's really, what will work for you. Students that are getting super involved, so in things like the EUS, may take significantly reduced course load in that year and things like that. So it just depends on what is important to you and how you want to set that up. And I would encourage you to talk with our advisors. So first year advising would be with Engineering Academic Services. And then you'll have a program advisor once you get into your department, and they can also help you with some of those choices of which courses you're taking when, and helping with your progression through that degree as well. So thanks for adding all of that in. That's some great perspective as well. All right, so I think that we've answered a lot of the questions. There are a few kind of very specific questions that I'm seeing about, again, like AP or transfer credits, things like that. So some of those will depend on specifically what course you've taken. It's possible that your credit for an AP course does not give you any credit for something that would be relevant to engineering. And that's okay. You would still get that credit, but when you decide if you want to use that credit or not, it would just be a matter of dropping those courses. If that credit has been assessed for you already, it will always exist. And it's up to you if you want to essentially retake that course that you have credit for at UBC. So again, a reminder that we encourage you to take your math and physics in first year at UBC, because that is really the foundation of the rest of your degree. But if you have, of course, credit for humanities or English or something like that, then you can definitely use that. You may have credit for something like a course that doesn't even apply to engineering at all, and that's just kind of an extra course that will be part of your transcript, but not relevant to your degree requirements. So it really depends on your particular situation. And questions about other transfer credits. So if you are coming as a transfer student or have done high school and college dual credit courses or anything like that, once you submit those transcripts to UBC, they will be evaluated for transfer credits. If you believe that you should have additional transfer credit to what you see on your SSC, then you can always contact Engineering Academic Services to request transfer credit if you think that it does truly align with one of the courses that you would be taking in your first year. So that is an option for you as well. That should all be assessed primarily through admissions. But if you have any additional questions, then you can always get in touch with, either send me an email or contact one of our advisors in Engineering Academic Services. So hopefully that answers a lot of the questions today. All right, Drayden, to kind of sign off, I always ask students that join me here, kind of what would be your one piece of advice? So let's pretend that you weren't starting in 2020, but maybe you were in high school starting now in this coming year, coming into UBC Engineering. What would kind of future you tell your high school self in terms of advice or any kind of reassurance for the coming year?
Yeah, we covered a lot of it, which I would say would be the main advice. But yeah, again, I guess to go over it is, make a schedule, stick to it. That's going to be huge. Another thing is, don't be discouraged when you, fail a midterm. Maybe I can't guarantee that you won't fail a midterm, but I can pretty much say that throughout your whole degree, you might fail at least one midterm. So if you fail a midterm, it's like 0.01% of your entire grade. So don't let it get to you. There's always future midterms. Then I guess the last thing is, don't let other people's expectations of you, it's very cliche, but don't let other people's expectations of you dictate what you want to do. Do the things that you love, because you will excel at the things that you love. So that's why I said about humanities courses, but really that's great advice for everything you do during your degree. So if you want to be able to be good at something, then do something that you like, because chances are you're going to be better at that thing.
Thank you so much, Drayden, for joining me today. It was great to have all of your experience and your guidance for all of our incoming students. Hopefully you will all get to participate in some of the tutoring sessions that Drayden's portfolio puts on, and that you'll see them around campus. And to all of you here today, I look forward to welcoming you to campus this fall. There are lots of other exciting things we have coming up this summer. There will be a Welcome to Engineering Canvas course. That is how a lot of your courses will be offered. And so you can kind of start to explore Canvas before you're even in any of your courses. We have some events coming up, a lot of them virtual throughout the summer for you to continue to participate in. And there are those upcoming advising sessions for course registration from Engineering Academic Services coming up. So really pay attention to your emails, because all of that great information is going to be in those emails that I send you every few weeks throughout the summer. And again, Drayden, thank you so much for being part of this. Best of luck in your new role of VP Academics, and I'm sure that I will see you around on campus as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, good luck to all the first years, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.